Oh, oh, that's the first purgatory proc. And that's a death. Yeah, no, I think 13s are a perfect place to learn mechanics. Oh, I can understand tanks being toxic now. You get mad so quick. Hey guys, it's Kusi. In a world where magical wheelchairs exist to support a man who could technically just teleport anywhere he wants to, a world in which gearing has become the ultimate gacha experience, and a world in which a tier list of unknown Muppets that don't even play every spec to compare are more valuable than, I don't know, having fun?
Are you stupid or something?
This dude tries the impossible. Welcome to the Try Not to Crash Out challenge in Mythic Plus pugging, in which I finally failed. On my way to a score of 3k in Mythic Plus, I encountered some funny things. Lousy damage, lousy routes, lousy tanking, but enough about me, now we also have lousy excuses. Because we will absolutely talk about what happened in that Algeta Academy, even though I might overreacted a little bit. Potentially, maybe. But first, make sure to like the video as it really helps out more than you think. And if you haven't, subscribe too, cause it's for free. Alright, to let the cat out of the bag, which is kind of funny to me because we talk about the fairy player here, let me show you the moment I got pissed at this gamer, and then I will show you all the things that led to the situation. So you can make your own opinion about this. Just know, I came into this key to time it, not to do dumb shit or min-max my own polls or anything. I wanted to time, because that's what you do. We wiped at Croft, which on AA is a bad thing to do because unlike many other dungeons, the timer here is very tight and dying or wiping to the boss, matter of fact, is most likely a brick. Unless you got some mad pumpers in the party, which kinda spoilers, we did not. Keen eyes will spot that the frontal is pointed at our feral and out of sheer panic he ran into the swirl and died. Now you probably think, oh you idiot, this is your fault. Don't point the frontal into the party, and you would be correct. But what about this? Here's the party. Here's the edge of the platform, and here's me. Now, why exactly did he say something like this?
I don't know, Jeff.
Well, I tried to explain it. He's unaware. Like most people are ever since Keys became this happy playground with no learning curve. He died to running into a swirly, which had nothing to do with me or the frontal. Me, being the aware gamer, instantly spotted that and rest him. He took a while to accept the rest, maybe to make sure there's no other stuff that has an impact on the location. Or maybe he just waited for the frontal. Then he accepted when the frontal happened, panicked, walked out, and died again. Now at this point, I'm already slightly upset. Because in a key level that isn't about rewards or farming gear / crests, but it's a key level that sole purpose is to time the key, for me this is griefing completely. And when he had the nuts to blame me for pointing that frontal into the party, that's kinda where I lost it. He was so unaware of what happened that his first response was to point fingers at me instead of simply deciding to not die to a swirl in the first place. Now one thing I want to make perfectly clear here. Whenever I mess up, I blame myself for that. There's usually something I could have done even if it's not entirely my fault. I'm unhappy sometimes with tank's decision making, sure. Healer's output sometimes is shit, yes. Or the lack of DPS that prolongs pulls, whatever. But I stopped pointing those things out in my party chat a long ass time ago. My mind tells me that if somebody heavily underperforms, they will figure it out on their own. Also, there will always be somebody that will tell them that they're bad. Keep in mind, this doesn't count for low keys or weekly keys, but in a 13, in which, again, we only play for score, everyone should at least have the ability to review themselves or their actions. I only mention those things when I get called out. If somebody messes up real bad and doesn't learn, I occasionally whisper them and explain them what to do. Because in party chat, it just leads to more frustration, I feel like, and people are very easy to jump on each other. With that being said, I lost it. Not only did he die to stupidity, not once, not twice, but 3 times, in which he purposefully avoided the bleed cleansing on the tree boss because he's a melee and he has to walk out of them actively. He also puts out some single target damage that is, in my humble opinion, not enough to play this key level. And his first response is to put the blame on somebody else for that. Shit's crazy. Hey, call me toxic if you want, I don't care. If you happen to defend people learning their class in the 13, then you are the toxic player in my opinion. With that being said, I went in there again as I needed an AA regardless. And this was a very different experience. I also finally figured out my route I'm going to play, which for most of you ain't that surprising because you kinda just skip 2 packs, but whatever, there you go, I learned. The missing part were those 2 extra worms, I always was about 1% short of stuff, so this will buff right out. Also, a quick tip. We only skipped this pack because it makes the gathering a bit easier, because the other pack with the big worm is a patrol and they are most likely to be added. So in case it gets accidentally pulled, you can just play it and don't play the patrol instead. It's a bit more difficult, but they give the same count. With that, only 3 dungeons were standing in our way, one of which, Skyreach. Now the good news first. In Skyreach, it's almost impossible to mess up percentage unless you absolutely want to. But if you happen to somehow skip one of these birds in the beginning entirely, even though you have 2 chances of pulling them, there's a pack close to the final boss to adjust that. However, as long as you play 2 of the 2 birds in the start, you're completely good. You cannot mess this up, don't worry about it. Now, I will not tell you about the cheese spots on the bosses that will ensure that you don't have to play mechanics, because unlike those cheesing virgins, you're a real gamer. One of which got fixed already anyways, so don't worry about it. For tanks in general, but for us on DK specifically, the only mob that are a real issue is the Adept of the Dawn. Those are the ones putting that nasty fire debuff onto the tanks, which stacks infinitely. I think no one has ever lived long enough to find out. These mobs are the reason you want to turn left after the first boss too, because on the right side there's one more of these. As a tank, don't be scared to kite them. It's better than dying. You can also just slow them, so you don't even need to jump or have to have extra mobility. For us as DK, we got a pretty nasty tool to deal with them for a while. AMS. Because this dot is magic damage. AMS will prevent it from being applied. And if you combine Vampiric Blood with AMS, it absorbs even more damage, making it super useful to either use at the start or whenever you have like, let's say 5 or 6 stacks already. They will run out and then you have an extra few seconds of just not getting applied. On the second boss, you technically can and should soak one of the beams on tank eventually, as they dig down DPS too fast in hierarchies, but for now, let the DPS do it, not to cause any confusion. Bird boss has one specific mechanic you need to be mindful of: melee attacks. And when I say that, I don't mean in general, I just mean you need to be close to the boss most of the time, otherwise somebody else gets their melee attacks. Its dot is also magical, so AMS can block every other of these. Easy peasy, don't worry, this is a full DPS angle for us. On the final boss, if you have Asphyxiated Talented, use it on the adds. If not, make sure to drop a Death and Decay on the targeted player to provide some slow. And move the boss alongside the add to maximize your party's DPS. When the add is dead, just try to move back again, stay in the middle, just to make it easier for your DPS so they don't have to think on their own. The pull size of what you can overcome heavily depends on yourself in this dungeon. It depends on your confidence, your cooldown management, and maybe your class as well. In general, no big pull in this dungeon will crush you just because. It most likely will kill your party. I think no big pull even has an adept in the party either, unless maybe on the last platform if you do a big one. With that being said, the timer in this dungeon is stupidly generous. So even when playing normally or taking a pull or two slowly due to cooldowns, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. As long as you don't wipe on bosses with 10% HP multiple times, there's almost no reason to not time this key. And with that, we end up at our very last 12, we need to get the Resilient achievement. Now, in Windrunner Spire, which I think is one of the easier ones to play, unless for healers, the route is a bit weird, or at least when using MDT. Generally speaking, you can't really mess up. From my experience, you will not pull all of those spiders, which would give you almost a perfect score. So to compensate, I would either pull these 2 or a pack on either side of the room that you spawn in after defeating 2 bosses. However, and here's why I say you can't really mess this up. When you enter the first room of those horde ghosts, after killing 2 bosses, just go left. If you go left, there are 2 more mobs than the right side, which basically gets you the score you need. And if you for some reason still don't get enough, there's still another 2 mob pack to grab, which you can easily pull on top of the 3rd boss. So unless you really, and I mean really try to skip everyone you can, you should be fine. Completely fine. No doubt about it. With that being said, from my pack experience so far, good luck skipping anything without somebody at least body pulling 2 extra packs anyways. Now, unfortunately, I have to spoil you here and tell you that this is the final key we needed to achieve 3k, and therefore end this series. However, I want to talk about my thoughts on Blood Decay, as we usually review the played spec on this channel. And I also want to talk about my plans moving forward with the character, because I genuinely having fun with it. So first things first, Blood Decay, while not being a meta spec or not being popular in hierarchies, usually is a fan favorite due to its very enjoyable class fantasy. And the truth is, Yes, you have a more difficult time in higher keys this season, but that has nothing to do with Blood being bad. It's just like every other season that other tanks are just better. And I think the main kit of other tanks is just more suited to avoid more damage. Because eventually Blood Decay, by its own nature, just gets one-tapped. I mean, even Blood Decay have resilient 21 keys, so it's not impossible at all. So unless you push for a 0.1% or I don't know 0.05 incher in Mythic Plus, don't bother about the tier lists. Unless you're some tier list watching loser who likes to blame the lack of success on the spec. For the majority of keys played right now, let's say 10 to 16, Blood is more than capable for you to reach 3.4k if you so desire. What makes Blood Decay super unique is that, besides being pretty much immortal in most situations, due to some really solid self-heal, you also provide utility every other tank is jealous over. A range kick, insane. 2 grips to make gathering a lot smoother. A choice node between an AoE grip that also adds a 3-second silence. Or a spell that automatically grabs mobs in who stand way too far away from the party. Anti-magic zone to help with incoming damage, which means you're also one of 2 specs that has a raid cooldown. The downside of the spec is very clearly the lack of movement. If you need to kite, like on the first pull in Agatha Academy for example, you are in big trouble as you can only run and not just leap away, which makes Dwarf even more important on DK unfortunately. Another issue of Blood Decay is simply that they have a really big problem when they are not in melee range to a target, to use Death Strike. This especially is a bit meh when you gather pulls, as you kinda need to leave them in the dust for a little bit. Which also brings me to the most annoying part about Blood Decay. The lack of threat that is applicable on range. Now granted, this is an issue half the tanks struggle with. I'm sure everyone would like something like Avenger's Shield on their favorite tank spec, right? The problem I have with this is that often in a situation of using Blood Boil to generate quick threat on a target, which makes sense because it does a lot of damage and threat, you sometimes have to wait till mobs are in range. And sometimes they take a while to walk up. And if you don't use your Blood Boil, maybe your DPS rip aggro, but if you use your Blood Boil too early and the mobs aren't there yet, maybe your healer rips aggro. Maybe that's just a me issue and I just do it bad, but this is one of the more stressful situations for me, paired with the fact that DPS often don't give you 2 globals together and just start nuking. To everyone not playing DK, here's a quick info. Death Grip, which is mostly used to gather packs faster, is on the GCD, so if a Blood Decay is gripping, they cannot do damage at the same time. With all of the above, I still had an absolute blast. DK is fun as hell. With the current availability of high-end gear, you also never really feel unsafe due to outscaling most of the key levels very quickly. You just get to 10s fast, and at that point the power spike hits into high gear. I personally like to have control when tanking, and with all the utility that provides a lot of help to gather pulls as clean as possible, Blood Decay quickly became one of my favorites personally. And I think I played every tank so far. I'm also a big fan of the changes Blood had with Midnight, where the self-heal got shredded, but the initial damage intake also is a lot less than before. Speaking of, which probably is one of the coolest designed cooldowns in the game, Dancing Rune Weapons, you feel so incredibly powerful. Especially with the recent changes to Blood's defensive connected with the Apex talent, because you have this proc so often. Dancing Rune Weapon is just a spell that visualizes being more tanky and doing more damage, and I love it. I also really like how you get rewarded for pressing buttons in your rotation, because when you use runes, you can proc Dancing Rune Weapon, which means more defensive and more damage, and when using Death Strike, you gain CDR for Vampiric Blood. And because Death Strike hits 3 targets, it means it's more damage and you also get defensive value out of it. Now, it doesn't mean you have to spam Death Strike, but you could. When it comes to the hero talents, one should argue that the balance is kinda meh, but here's why. Deathbringer provides more defensive utility, an easy access button for a lot of burst damage, almost passively, and one less worry because you don't really need to use Marrow Rend outside of the moments where it's sparkling to proc the Deathbringer. St. Lane technically provides more DPS, but for the cost of the defensive perks of Deathbringer. I think the problem with St. Lane is that all tanks do decent damage regardless, and so does Blood Decay, and I simply think that the damage output of St. Lane is not impactful enough to be worth picking. So if you start Blood yourself, go with Deathbringer. It does give you an extra button to deal some massive damage, especially on low keys, as the burst damage just bricks those trash pulls. Now, with that out of the way, will I go for more than 3k on Blood Decay? The short answer is yes. The long answer, however, not for now. Tanking is super fun and easily my second favorite role to play after many DPS, but strictly pugging solo is not always enjoyable. Timing and bricking keys is simply more fun when you play it with others. So don't expect any continuous episodes for now. However, once I'm around the 16 key range, I may record 1 or 2 videos and talk about what I'm doing. Maybe I just need a quick break from WoW at this point, because I've been playing it non-stop since Midnight's launch, but I feel a bit of a, tiredness about it. And I mostly play with pugs, so I never really experience the fun aspects of the MMO, Alrighty. That was it for now in terms of the series. I hope you enjoyed this, and I really hope that if you never tanked before but you want to, give it a shot. It feels really good to pull off certain pulls without dirt napping in the end. And the cool thing about this is that for you personally, when you play tank a lot more, you can see the progress curve of better pulling, better management, less dependency on the healer. It just feels awesome to get better on the tank. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.